Let me ask you something real. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I don't even know who I am anymore? Not in a dramatic way, but in that quiet, unsettling way, you stare at your reflection. Same face, same job, same life. But somehow, you don't recognize the man looking back. That was me at 33. And maybe, in your own way, it's you too. People assume identity falls apart after some big tragedy, but for most men, it happens in silence. You wake up one day and realize your life is built on routines, obligations, and versions of yourself you created just to survive. You don't feel passion. You don't feel direction. You don't feel connected to the man you've been pretending to be. You're functioning. You're doing fine. But inside, you feel a disconnect so deep you don't know where to even start fixing it. And the scariest part, you don't know who you'd be if you stop playing the roles you've been playing. You wear masks so long, they start to feel like skin. So let me tell you a story, my story. I felt like a background character in my own life, always present, never real. At 33, I hit a wall. Not physically, emotionally. I was doing everything I thought I should be doing, working hard, being reliable, showing up for people, pretending I had direction. But the truth, I felt empty, detached, like I was watching someone else live my life. I had outgrown the identity I built in my 20s, but I didn't know who to become next. One night I sat alone on my couch, light off, phone face down, just staring at the floor. And all I could think was, I don't know who I am, but I can't keep being who I've been. That was the moment everything broke open. My lowest point wasn't loud. It wasn't some breakdown in public. It was quiet. It was waking up with heaviness I couldn't explain, feeling embarrassed that I didn't love the life I had built, feeling ashamed that I had no idea what I wanted anymore. It was regret about wasted years, burnout from carrying everyone's expectations, shame from realizing I had abandoned myself for stability, approval, or just survival. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, a man wearing a version of himself that no longer fit. And the worst part, I didn't know how to admit any of this to anyone. The shift came one morning when I wrote a single sentence in my journal, I am allowed to start over at 33. And no one questions when women reinvent themselves, but when men do, it feels like failure. It didn't solve anything, but it gave me permission to stop clinging to an identity that exhausted me. I realized identity isn't fixed. It's not a single decision. It's something you rebuild every time you tell the truth about who you're becoming. And for the first time, I asked myself questions I had avoided for years. What do I actually want? What do I believe? What part of my life feels forced? What part feels real? It was uncomfortable. It was messy, but it was honest. And honesty is where rebirth begins. My comeback wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a montage of instant success. It was slow and quiet, like learning to breathe again. I took daily walks without music, just to let my thoughts settle. I started journaling every night, not to be productive, but to reconnect with myself. I set boundaries, real ones, like saying no to people who drained me and yes to time alone even when it made me feel guilty. I tried new things without forcing them to become my identity. I allowed myself to fail without labeling myself a failure. I let old versions of me die so new ones had space to grow. Piece by piece, I rebuilt a man I respected, not a man who impressed others. It wasn't quick. It wasn't easy, but it was real. I didn't become a new person. I became myself again. Here's what I learned, and in what I wish someone told me sooner. Identity isn't something you lose. It's something you outgrow. You're not supposed to be the same man you were at 20 or 25 or even last year. Feeling lost at 33 isn't a failure. It's a sign that you've grown enough to no longer fit the old version of yourself. And rebuilding yourself isn't about reinventing everything. It's about becoming honest about who you truly are now. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're not late. You're just shedding a skin that no longer feels like home. If this message hit close to home, you're not alone. Feel free to subscribe, only if it helped you reconnect with something inside. If you've ever quietly asked, "Who am I now?" share that moment below. You're not broken, you're becoming one small shift at a time.